Hi, this is Daryl Van Dyke, and I'm going to be discussing NonStop SCOBOL. I'm going to be covering four basic topics: an introduction to what SCOBOL is, some points on how to tune a SCOBOL environment, how to modernize a SCOBOL environment, and what to do for support with your SCOBOL applications. So before we get started, just some general terms. If I mention the word client, I'm really talking about anything that's connected to the end of a wire. It could be a dumb terminal, it could be a cell phone, which is not really connected to a wire, obviously, but it could be a cash register, it could be a gas pump. Anything that's programmable is a client in my presentation. When I speak of TSMP, I'm really talking about the original Pathway product that HP came out with. It's just an upgraded name of what Pathway is. First and foremost, SCOBOL is a procedural programming language. It looks similar to ANSI COBOL, only it has some enhancements to it that basically does screen types of displaying and accepting data from a device or a client. It's bundled with NonStop TSMP, which includes products like TSMP, again, the SCOBOL compiler itself, PathCom, and a whole bunch of other products that are bundled with TSMP. It is proprietary, owned by HP. It generates it generates interpreted object code. It was originally written to handle character-based data entry or dumb terminals, but later it was enhanced to really accept any client data. A SCOBOL program, again, looks like ANSI COBOL in that it has an identification division, environment division, data division, procedure division. It can do all procedural type of verbs that COBOL can do. Almost does 99% of them. It does performs and all your arithmetic operations, go-tos, if-then else's, things like that. In addition, it has a screen section where all of the data is mapped to and from a client. It has additional verbs in the procedure division. One's called display, which causes data to be rendered out to a client. It has an accept verb, which brings in data from a client, and it has a send verb, which allows the SCOBOL program to get data or request services from a TSMP service class. It also has special registers, which when you're a SCOBOL programmer, you should get a handle on what these are and know how to use them. How you compile a SCOBOL program is really simple. From a tackle prompt, use a TSMP product called SCOBOL X, which is the compiler. You specify your input file and you specify an object location. If the SCOBOL code compiles without any errors, you will get two files. One is called a code file, which has the interpreted instructions to be executed. And it has a directory which contains the name, a date, version of the SCOBOL program when it was compiled. And as an option, you can ask for a symbols file to be generated, and this holds every procedure division verb that you coded. So if you want to debug this, it's really handy to step through your code. You can actually see the procedure verb that you're executing as you're debugging the program. In a normal TSMP environment, you have a lot of SCOBOL programs. They are usually written to handle one function, although nothing's written in stone. When you design these SCOBOL programs, they can do multiple functions if you want them to. But generally, people write them to be really skinny little SCOBOL programs that do one function. For instance, you can have SCOBOL program A, which only does logon stuff. SCOBOL program B, which you can call program C if you want to go select a single record, or maybe you want to get a whole bunch of records back, you can call program D. So program C gets executed, and you can say, well, if they select delete, then I want to call SCOBOL program E. If they want to do an update, I can call program F. If they want to do a modify, I can call program G, and on and on. You get the feeling that, or you can see that each SCOBOL program usually does one specific function. Although again, you can do as many functions, you can bundle as many functions as you want inside one SCOBOL program, but generally that's not the design people do when they design their SCOBOL applications. SCOBOL itself is a very light app, meaning there is absolutely nothing that runs on that client. Everything is controlled in the host. Unlike, for instance, you might be used to Facebook or some other app like that. If you execute one of those types of apps, you get a lot of data that's downloaded to that client. It has instructions, it has data, it has to keep track of. It does a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information that's a lot of data, CPU cycles, etc., that is used in that client now. In a SCOBOL world, there is nothing downloaded to that client, except if you're running an intelligent device. SCOBOL doesn't have any idea what that intelligent device is. The only thing it cares about is the data going to and from that device. So it's up to you to design your own client. SCOBOL will manage all the data from that client. The SCOBOL code is executed inside a TSMP process called a TCP, or Terminal Control Process. This provides the lightness of the client, meaning that all of the code that you have written in your SCOBOL programs is actually interpreted and run inside the TCP, which is running on the host. There's no instructions being downloaded to run on that client. A TCP is multi-threaded, meaning it can keep track of hundreds of IOs at the same time. It can keep track of hundreds of SCOBOL programs running at the same time. It's written to be fault tolerant, meaning it only runs on a NonStop HP server, which is capable of doing checkpointing. So that means it has an active backup, so if a processor should fail where TCP is running, the backup processor will take off exactly where the primary process was executing. It does all the IOs on behalf of a SCOBOL program. It does that by communicating to TSMP server classes. Just like an operating system shares instructions if two programs are executing the same piece of software, TCP does the same thing. If two screen COBOL programs want to be run on two different clients, the TCP will share that code on those two clients. But again, to the user, they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. The TCP maintains separate data stacks for each client, just like an operating system does. From a picture type of view, here's what's really going on. The TCP runs all of the instructions that you've coded in your procedure division inside your SCOBOL program. To the user, it looks like they're that they are running a program on their client. In reality, all of the instructions are being executed inside the TCP. Again, this holds true for dumb terminals or block mode terminals. If you have a heavy client like, for instance, Facebook or a cash register or something like that, that you want to have your own display and your own code running there, that's fine. But TCP will manage all of those data, all the data that you want to handle to send to and from that client. TCP manages all that for you. In the real world, this is what your TSMP environment might look like. You could have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of server classes. You could have hundreds of TCPs all managing different clients. And all of these are spread out over HP NonStop servers. This whole environment is known as the TCP environment, and it has to be managed and it has to be monitored. The database is not a part of TSMP, and neither is comms. But those separate those separate areas have to be managed also. How do you tune a TSMP environment? Specifically, how do you tune a SCOBOL program? Specifically, how do you tune the TCP process which runs the SCOBOL program? Well, the TCP, if you reference back a couple slides, it shows that the TCP is managing maybe hundreds of clients. Well, the TCP can get overwhelmed with work. You've asked it to do too much. So we can offload some of those clients to new TCPs if that happens. But in general, anytime you want to tune a system, there are 4 basic areas that you need to look at on a NonStop server. You have to look at the network. You have to look at any queuing getting to the database. You have to look at server processes to make sure they're not overwhelmed with requests. And the TCP, because it can handle multiple clients, can get overwhelmed with work also. So all of these are potential queue places inside or on a NonStop server. This is just an example of how to do some preliminary tuning, if you will, when you configure a TCP process on the NonStop server. You can specify what processors you want it to run in. In this example, I've said set TCP CPUs 1 and 0. 1 is going to be the primary processor where the TCP is going to run, and 0 is going to be the backup processor where this TCP process is going to run. You can specify how many server classes it can talk to, how many different server processes, not server classes, server processes, which is different, that you want it to talk to. How many clients do you want this specific TCP to handle? In this case, I said max terms, and again, this is just a parameter set with TSMP, but max terms is really the number of clients that you want this TCP to handle. If you want to get a snapshot of what someone has configured on your TSMP environment, you want to see what a TCP looks like, all you have to do is go into PathCom and issue an info TCP and the name of that TCP process. And it will come back and it will tell you, this is how I was configured initially. If you want to see what's going on inside a TCP, TSMP through PathCom allows you to issue a statistics command which will give you a visual of any queues that have gone on or are going on inside a TCP process. In general, what you're looking for, and I have highlighted in red at the bottom, what you're looking for is any value greater than 1. If you have a higher number than that, that means that there's some queuing going on inside the TCP. And there are ways to configure TCP to get these queues and keep them at 0. If you want to modernize your old block mode or character mode screen, and that's shown on the left, for instance, if you want to modernize that to more look and feel, where you have graphics, or you might want to run an app on or client on a cell phone, we have tools to move that SCOBOL code over to a modern look and feel, where you can have drop-down menus, you can do immediate range verification, missing data verification, you can use point and click or your finger to move around the screen, you can cut and paste, and any HTML device is capable of being a client inside a TSMP environment, thereby replacing your old block mode, character mode clients. If you need support because maybe no one any longer works at your company that knows what TSMP is, specifically, they don't know how to tune a TCP, or they don't know what the SCOBOL programs are doing, and let's say they want to modify what a screen COBOL program is doing, that you want to modify those old screen COBOL programs, or maybe you just want to migrate from an older NonStop HP system to a newer NonStop HP server, and you need help moving all your TSMP environment over along with your SCOBOL programs, contact me at this email and I will be glad to walk you through all of this.